U.S. Central Command says 3 fighter jets were shot down by friendly fire from Kuwaiti forces. CENTCOM says all 6 crew members aboard the jets ejected, were safely recovered, and are in stable condition. Now, CNN geolocated video that appears to be an F-15 falling from the sky, the pilot parachuting out. There's also video that appears to show a pilot safe on the ground after ejecting. Now, the aircraft were F-15 Strike Eagle fighter jets. CENTCOM says Kuwaiti air defenses mistakenly shot them down during active combat that included attacks from Iranian aircraft, ballistic missiles, and drones. The cause of the incident under investigation. Now, CNN following all the latest developments from around the globe, the White House, the Gulf, inside Saudi Arabia, and Israel. Let's start there. Our Nick Payton-Walsh is in Tel Aviv with the very latest on the loss of 3 U.S. aircrafts. That's a significant loss all at once, Nick.
It is startling to see 3 involved in a friendly fire incident like this, and I think it brings home the jeopardy that US troops face as this conflict widens. Look, it's clear that CENTCOM is saying here this was an active combat area. Likely, it seems, if you interpret what they said, that Kuwaiti air defenses were engaging drones, missiles, other things at the time, and mistook these F-15s as legitimate targets too. That is essentially the consequence of the war that the United States is in here. President Trump warned yesterday that there could potentially be more US casualties. There's been 3 so far, and let's face it, this was clearly a near miss. All 6 crew ejecting safely and now being in a stable condition, having been recovered by the US military.
We want to talk about how this happened, and here to do that is retired Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson. Thank you so much for being here, because we're going to talk not just about that plane, but also the sort of pros and cons of doing an air campaign with the goal of regime change, which is not something history has shown us really before. So first, talk about what you were seeing with that F-15. Give us the context of what our capabilities are in the region.
Well, there's probably at least 30 or so F-15s that are stationed there in Kuwait. And they all, no doubt, took part in this massive air campaign that took over the weekend. Over 1,000 sorties were flown. You have to remember that it was an incredibly complex operation involving the Lincoln Carrier Battle Group, the Ford Carrier Battle Group out in the Mediterranean, all the bases that we have in the Middle East. Without a doubt, there was probably Tomahawk missiles launched from submarines, in fact. So it was an incredibly complex operation. So the fact that we'd have some kind of collision or some kind of an incident, is not that, it's not that remarkable. But what is remarkable is the performance of the American military in this and the Israeli military to have done what they've done over the last couple of days without a single shoot down is pretty remarkable.
Those aircraft were F-15 Strike Eagle fighter jets. The cause of the incident, of course, continues to be looked at, but those jets are just some of the assets that the U.S. is deploying in the air as this war expands. The military is also using remotely piloted MQ-9 Reaper drones. They carry Hellfire missiles and guided bombs. They are also using B-2 stealth bombers, valued at, just so you know, more than $1 billion each. The bombers usually fly out from an airbase in Missouri with a crew of 2. Now, let's get the very latest from our correspondent stationed in key cities. Clarissa Ward is on the Iranian border in eastern Iraq. Let's start with you, Clarissa. What's happening there?
Hi, Kate. Well, we are here at the border. As you mentioned, today's the first day that there's some traffic going in and out. They are allowing Iranian trucks and Iranian citizens to go back into Iran, and for Iraqis who may be on the other side of the border to come back in. But I just want to play you some video of something pretty extraordinary. We just saw an Iranian Shahed drone literally flew over our heads. Take a look. And now, sorry, there was supposed to be more of that video, but we'll get that to you later. But they closed the border for a little while, then they reopened it. And now if you turn over here, you can see these trucks are starting to move again. We spoke to one Iranian truck driver who told us that he was very scared about what's happening inside Iran, but that he wanted to get back home as quickly as possible to be sure that he could get back to his family. Kate?
Oh, that's understandable. That's some amazing video. We're getting that all brought in and to show that more of that video that you and your team were able to get. Clarissa, we're going to be showing that for sure once we can turn that around. I really appreciate it, Clarissa, standing by in Iraq for us at the Iranian border. Let's now get to Paula Hancock. She's in Dubai, another key place to be watching right now. What's the situation there?
Well, Kate, we have been hearing interceptions overhead. Monday morning, there were at least 2 interceptions we heard here in Dubai. In Abu Dhabi, an hour down the road, it's a very similar situation. And just in the last several minutes, we have been hearing a number of fighter jets in the air. So there is certainly at this point no let-up in the retaliation from Iran when it comes to these Gulf nations. Now, it is interesting. We're having figures through from ministries of defense talking about how much is being thrown from Iran towards these Gulf nations. The UAE, the United Arab Emirates, is by far the highest tally. These are figures from Sunday, the latest that they have published, and we know for a fact there's been more than this since then. They say there have been 165 ballistic missiles, 2 cruise missiles, 541 drones that have been fired from Iran towards the UAE. Now, according to the MOD, they have intercepted more than 90%, more than 92% of those. In fact, there are some very good air defense systems here, many of them in conjunction with the United States. And what we're seeing as well is, you know, this is Dubai. This is a very glitzy city. It's full of expatriates, of tourists. It is usually filled with traffic and it's buzzing. It is like a ghost city at the moment. People are taking this shelter-in-place warning very seriously. All schools are virtual at this point. We have seen a number of shops that are shut. Not all of them, though. At this point, doctors are shut. And people just aren't going out and about. We know that many people are trying to figure out how to get out of here. I was at breakfast in the hotel this morning. I walked past 3 tables, a British, a Russian, then another British, all with their computers open, trying to figure out how they could leave. Kate?
Quite a situation for so many that you're seeing. Paul, thank you very much. Let's now get to London. Salma Abdelaziz is standing by there. Salma, we heard some strong statements coming from the British Prime Minister this weekend. What are you hearing now?
Yes, and Britain is absolutely feeling the repercussions of this. Just a short time ago, we heard that 2 drones that were fired at a British Royal Air Force base in Cyprus were intercepted. And it appears that this is the second time that this base was struck, because just last night, overnight, a drone did hit that base, causing minimal damage and no casualties. Now, after that base was struck by a drone, British officials said that they would work to evacuate families. So it's unclear if families were quite literally trying to leave that base as drones continued to come in this morning. What is Britain's position so far? Well, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said that Britain will not get involved in what he described as offensive strikes on Iran. He drew back on the lessons of Iraq and said that Britain does not want to repeat those. But then in a recent statement, he said that he would allow British bases to be used by the U.S. military for its operations. Now, there is great controversy in this country as to what level of involvement Britain should have. Regardless, though, you are hearing officials ringing the alarm because they see what's happening in the Gulf, which you just heard from our colleague Paula there, that regardless of your degree of involvement, regardless of trying to maintain some neutrality as it is, it can still become a target for Iran. That's why you hear some officials here saying that personnel and citizens of Britain could be subject to indiscriminate attacks from Iran. We also heard on Sunday that Britain did shoot down a drone. It says it was a defensive action. So very much a country here that's trying to toe the line, trying to maintain a neutral position, but that has offered up its bases to the United States and is feeling the brunt of those actions, particularly in Cyprus, where that base right now is reeling from those attacks.